Hi, this is Janice with Needles and Fashion, and I am here to give you a tutorial on how to make the tie front skirt that's featured on my blog, www.needlesandfashion.blogspot.com. So, the first thing we're going to do is cut the fabric. The pattern that I'm using today is going to be V8815. I'm using this particular pattern, number one, because I have it, and number two, because the bodice cut of the front and the back is very similar to the inspiration picture that I will be using. Now, the inspiration picture I'm going to be using is a jumpsuit, but I'm just creating the top. I considered making the entire jumpsuit, but I want to make sure that this is a separate piece so that I can use it with different types of colors of jeans or khakis or knit pants that I want to wear with it. So I'll be pairing this with a jean today. So what I wanted to do was make a top that was separate from the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is gather my materials and come back to you and let you know exactly what you need and how I'm going to construct this garment. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to grab my materials and come back and show you exactly what you need. So for this pattern, what I'm going to do is, I already grabbed my materials. I'm going to need a pencil, which I'm going to use because this fabric is rather dark. I'm going to need my grid line ruler or a ruler, any type of regular ruler that you have. I have my rotary dial cutter, which I use to cut on my table, or you can use a regular set of fabric cutting scissors. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a couple of adjustments to my fabric. The first thing you want to do is go ahead and decide exactly how long do you want the strips on the side to go. I chose my shins. The inspiration picture on Mel B, it actually went down to her ankles. I don't necessarily want it that long, so I chose my shins. So what I'm going to do is I made a measurement from my collarbone down to my shins, which is 45 inches. And I'm going to add about 3 or 4 inches to that just to curve out the actual shape of the strings on the side. I'm calling them strings, but they're more like, you know, belt or whatever you call it on the side. So the first thing I want to do, I went ahead and put some fabric weights on my fabric. And what I'm going to do is take my grid line ruler and I'm just going to go ahead and curve down the sides of the actual bodice. I'm going to mark the end of the bodice on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So I'm going to make a marking for my bodice here. And I'm making it at the bottom of the actual pattern. I'm doing that because I'm going to create a seam in the front and a seam on the side. So I want to know where my natural waistband should actually end. Now, if you know V8815 very well, you know that it's for a peplum shirt. The peplum of the shirt is actually in the neighborhood of your navel. For me, this particular size that is appropriate for me for that pattern. So to ensure that I have enough space for my particular hem, I'm going to add just a ½ inch to the markings that I made. And that's going to give me a guide for when I start working on the back piece. So the front part ends up being about 1 inch, and then the back piece ends up being about a ½ inch. The next thing I'm going to do, because I don't want the sashes of this skirt to be very long, I'm going to measure down, and I'm going to curve that, start making my markings at an angle. The angle that I'm making is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the actual bottom of the bodice of the garment, and I want to start marking that ½ inch down from the outside of the bodice. So I'm just going to go down here and mark that down. I want my sashes, that's what I'm going to call it, my sashes, to be kind of slim. I don't want it to be very bulky, and I'm going to start from that inch area in the front because that's where I'm going to make my slit. And I'm going to curve it in about 1.5 inches as well. Come down. And I know that you can't see this, but it's there. Now I'm approaching the area where it's my 45-inch marking, which is right here. So I'm going to come on down on the other side, all the way down to my 45-inch mark. I'm just going to go a couple inches past that because I want to point out this section. So I have it here, and I have it here. I'm just going to make a really sharp point halfway in on both sides. And that's from the 45-inch marking, or whatever your marking is, down to that point. So I have that marked. And what I'm going to do is take my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut those areas out. So I'm going to start at the end here. And I'm cutting the front bodice and the back bodice on the fold. V8815 requires you to have a zipper in the back. It's not needed for this actual tutorial because I'm using a 4-way stretch fabric, and I want this to be kind of snug and hang to the body. Okay, so I'm just going to check my cuts here, make sure everything is loose, and I'm just going to fold this over, remove my pattern weights. I'm just going to set this aside. I can actually take the paper out. There's notches on here, but when you're constructing a bodice, once you've done it a couple times, you don't really need to use those notches again. But if you're a beginner sewer, you definitely want to cut those notches. You can cut the notches around the neck area and on the actual shoulders, but you're not going to need the ones on the shoulders because we're not adding the sleeve to this actual garment. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to go ahead and prep my fabric for the bottom bodice. I'm actually going to use the bottom of this fold that I made on my fabric. So I'm just going to move this up here. I'm going to cut off the excess scrap fabric here. Ooh, that was ugly. Set this aside. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that piece, and then we'll be back to go ahead and start on the back bodice piece. Okay, so I'm back, and we're ready to go ahead and cut the the back bodice of this particular pattern. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to add a 1 inch. Because the front I actually extended by 1 inch, so I'm going to add that 1 inch to account for the hem. I'm just going to bring that on down to the bottom of this pattern. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut bodice as normal. Okay, so I have my back bodice covered. I have it cut on out. And then what I'm going to do next is attach the front and the bottom. There are notches in both the front and the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put those notches in. I'm going to do a hem for the front. And I'm going to bring that hem all the way down. I'm doing the hem in the area that's actually going to form as the sash. So as you can see, there's a separation of the sash in the middle. The reason why I do this is because I don't want the sash to be very bulky. So I have it separated and it has a cascading triangle that goes down to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my darts in, and then I'm going to go ahead and hem my sashes, and then we'll get on to attaching the front to the back. So I will be right back to show you that portion of this tutorial. Here at the sewing machine, I'm going to go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start working on the sashes for the front bodice. So what I'm going to do is fold this over a little less than 1/4 inch at the middle. I'm going to place it on my machine. If you're a beginner, you might want to go ahead and pin this to make it a little bit more easier for yourself. And I'm just going to go ahead with about 1/4 inch of a seam all the way down. And I'm coming all the way down to where the triangle is. Pull it back up. Just going to lift my foot up, and I'm going to go ahead and start the fold for the triangle portion. And I'm going to let that seam thin out towards the point. I'm going to cut my thread there. I'm going to come back in at the bottom of that triangle, and I'm going to fold my seam in and fold over again. I'm not going to sew the actual corner just yet. I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit beyond that. Lift my foot up so I can gain some traction. Lift it up again so I can gain some more traction. And I'm going to do the same thing coming on down. Back that up. Lift my foot up and fold over again. Put my foot down and proceed. And because this is an area that will potentially show, I'm sewing very close to the edge of my hem, so that it doesn't, fold up or anything like that. go all the way to the actual armhole. And I'm thinning it out as I go towards the top because it's getting towards the armhole, and I'm already going to have to do a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance for those. I don't want this to interrupt that, so I'm making sure that this hem is smaller than a 5/8 of an inch, just to keep some consistency. Okay, so I got that side done. I'm going to go ahead and begin working on the other side. And for this portion, I'm going to go ahead and start working at the bottom to keep the fabric faced up. And I'm not going to go all the way to my curve, to my point again, just so the machine can have some fraction. Just going to lift my foot up. There we go. My foot up, fold over again. And while I'm doing this, I am not stretching this fabric at all. Okay, so I finished this portion of the insides of the sash and the outside on one side. And I'm just going to create a really small hem from the armhole of the other side down. Because this is going to be part of my seam allowance. Down towards the area where the waist is, where I made my marking. So I'm going to go ahead and widen it up to just below a 1/4 of an inch. And because I'm working with a stretched fabric, this is not going to bother the shape of the actual pattern at all. Getting towards my first corner of the triangle piece at the bottom. Just going to back that up, fold this over, and continue sewing. And that way I can just cut the little point off in the end. That's not threaded. So I have those pieces done. I can go ahead and cut off my threads. And I'm just going to set that aside a little bit. I want to go ahead and move on to the back piece, where I'm going to fold in half, which is about where the actual darts are. The darts are about 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and put those darts in. And they're about 2.5 inches long. But you can follow the pattern and make your markings to do this. I've done this pattern so many times that I already know exactly where I need to place it. Okay, so I got that first dart in. I'm going to go ahead and put my first dart. The darts for this particular pattern are only in the back. And go ahead and place that 5/8 of an inch. And repeat. Okay, so I have my front and my back piece. I have my back piece darted. I'm going to place that with right sides up. And I have my front piece with my hemmed sashes. And I have all the hems facing up, so I'm putting right sides together. And you can go ahead and pin the fronts at the shoulder seams. And you can put it on the sewing machine. I'm just going to do one shoulder seam at a time. I'm sewing it with the standard 5/8 of an inch seam. Okay, so I have my right shoulder done. I'm going to go ahead and work on the left. I'm going to pin those two together. On the sewing machine and go ahead and sew those. 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I have those done. I'm going to go ahead and work on my side seams. And I'm going to stop these side seams about 1/2 inch from the edge because I need to hem the back of the garment. So I'm just going to put a little pin here for guide. Everyone knows that watch my videos, I'm not a big pinner. But they are very necessary. And just have my finger marked here, ready to stop. You can put a pin there to get the same effect. This is where I'm going to stop. Just double and force that there. And I'm going to start working on the next side. Same 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to stop again 1 inch before the bottom. Half an inch. So I got that side put together, And I literally have the makings of what would be my shirt. So I have my front piece that has my sashes. And then I have the back piece with my darts. So now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and hem the actual armhole and the neck hole. It's going to be really simple. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch hem on these. Going all the way around, which is literally the end of your pressure foot. This shirt is really easy. Once you have your pieces cut out, like literally you're like 40% done. So it's something that is fairly easy to do. It's something that I feel like I will make at least one more of to wear with my jeans. It's also something that you can wear successfully with a pencil skirt. I'm going to go ahead and move over to my armholes. I'm going to go ahead and use my attachment out for that. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze. And, you know, again, if you're a beginner, you want to go ahead and fold and possibly press these areas and pin them as well. If you're making this for someone else, you definitely want to go ahead and serge the edges. I'm making this for myself. It's a fabric that doesn't fray. So you can either, you know, you can serge it or you can do a double fold on the hems. Whichever is more comfortable for you. I think a double hem would really look nice for this particular fabric. Which, by the way, is a ponte knit. It's actually a thick ponte knit. But it has 4-way stretch. I actually end up getting this on a remnant table, if you believe it, at a designer fabric place that I go to called Fine Fabrics in Baltimore. It's a little ways away from me. And they literally I have about, 3 yards or so here. And they literally had those 3 yards on a remnant table. I was like, yes. But when they're at the end of a bolt, you know, they don't go by the normal guidelines of typical fabric stores like Joann's. They put the whole thing on there just to get it out the door. And I promise you, I literally paid like $3 for this. So now, that is not the cost of their fabrics, because again, they have designer fabrics in this particular location. But, you know, they don't sell online. But if you're ever in the Baltimore, Maryland area, that is definitely a place to check. Sometimes I go there just to shop on their remnant table because I know it's going to be some fabulous fabric and high quality fabric. If you happen to live in the area, they will actually order fabric for you. I needed some white fabric, white denim fabric for the jeans that I featured on my blog. And they literally ordered it, and a week later I got a call saying, hey Janice, we have these fabrics in. And I was like, I will be there. So there you have it. I went ahead and I didn't have to make any adjustments to my shirt, which is good. I will say that when you're tying this particular shirt, you can tie it on either side, whether it's the right side or the left side. I chose the right side, which is kind of like my side where I put my zippers at and my sashes and all those good things. So when you're actually tying your sashes, what I did, and it may work for you, it may not, you can come up with your own method. What I did was a loose roll from the left to the right, and then once I finished that loose roll, I made a loose knot. So I checked the garment to make sure everything was laying lovely. You're going to have this pull. This pull I actually like. It's very similar to the inspiration pick that I use for this particular shirt. So once I got that loose knot, I just went ahead and reaffirmed it with a tighter knot, and I make sure that I tied it over and then push the actual sash through the top so that everything kind of goes down and you don't have your sash kind of sticking up like this. I paired this shirt with a pair of high waist wide leg jeans that I got from Rich and Skinny, and it's a jeans that's one of my kind of go-to because it has a little bit of a control top, which I like. The back of the shirt is very similar to what 8815 already is. There's no changes there. I have my darts in place, and that's pretty much it. You know, I like this shirt. I think I might make at least one more of these, especially because I have a vacation coming up, and you know, it's spring. I'm very happy. It took a long time for spring to actually get started in the Northeast. So I'm happy to kind of have something like this to throw on with my pants. I don't really make many tops. I'm one of those people that probably have 20 tops to every 20 bottoms to every one top that I have. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to visit my blog, www.needlesandfashion.blogspot.com, and view other DIY projects. And, you know, check out my YouTube channel. Give me the thumbs up, subscribe. I have many more projects, and I look forward to doing many more. I'm looking into doing some improvements over the next 30 days that will give a better quality to the videos that I'm making, better quality to the viewing, and better quality to some of the editing that I'll be doing. So it's improving over time. Be sure to also visit our Facebook group, which is also called Needles and Fashion. It's a community of great soul sisters and brothers that, you know, submit their projects. We do sew-alongs every month. It's fun, good times, very positive, very affirming. We're there to help you and any projects that you're working on. Just a good soul family. So this is Janice, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll be back soon to bring you more. Peace and love.